Hello, everyone. Dr. Nick Verma here with another episode of Things I Didn't Learn in Med School. Sorry I didn't have an episode last week. I was at a conference and I didn't have time to put on a show or an episode, but hopefully this next couple weeks I'll be able to make up for it. Today, I want to talk about something that actually came up over the past weekend while I was at the TOBI conference, the Orthobiologics Institute conference, which is a pretty big, world-renowned regenerative medicine conference that talks a lot about musculoskeletal health and how to, continue to help our patients and not just kick the can down the road with constantly injecting steroids that may or may not be helping. And we know now that steroids are actually quite detrimental to cartilage and to bone health and potentially dangerous to the tendons and stuff that we sometimes inject. So that's a story for another day. We can talk about it some other time, but that was a conference I was at. But this popular concept kept coming up because I had several people come up to me and say, oh, hey, I really appreciate what you've been doing on your social media, on LinkedIn and on YouTube. And I was, grateful for that. I was like, man, I didn't even know that many people were watching, but I'm really thankful if you are watching. So obviously, there are people out there that find this stuff useful and interesting. But I had other physicians that were there that, hadn't, sorry about that, hadn't been following my content and hadn't been really listening to some of my stuff. And they're also starting their own practice. So we started getting this conversation about owning your own social media and what that looks like. Now, let's just start from the beginning, because first things first is I don't think a lot of med students and residents and even fellows think about this, is that everything that you do on the internet is documented for the rest of your life. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. I've said and done stupid things on the internet in the past, or things that don't align with who I am today. And that's part of the nature of everything. If we continue to grow and continuously evolve as individuals, and what that means to try to get to a better self, and so we can help more people. But you can go back and kind of delete some of those things, but you never know if someone took a screenshot. You never know who has access to those deleted tweets or photos and stuff like that. So you should always assume, first and foremost, always assume everything you've ever done on the internet is documented and it's there for the rest of your life. I don't say this to scare you. I just want you to kind of be aware that this is a reality out there. And this is double so when you have conversations with your friends just via text message and not through a secure messaging app such as Signal. WhatsApp is another version, but I'm hesitant to say that is as secure. We kind of know what Facebook does with their security, but again, another topic for another day. So those are a couple things. So, remember that everything that you do and say on the internet is documented, and imagine it's going to be documented for the rest of your life. And the other thing is, everything you say via text message, that might not be a secure messaging service. So also keep that in the back of your mind when you are messaging your friends, especially about cases that you might want to run by somebody, or, could just be a casual conversation you're having that might not be something that you would want other people to read or look into. But anyway, so we were talking about these kind of things of owning your social media, owning your online presence, and what all this means. So in my opinion, this is something that we don't learn in med school. We have topics about it, but we don't really know what it means. So starting at the beginning is kind of owning your own presence. This involves grabbing the domain of your name. For example, I would have Nikhil Verma MD as my domain. That doesn't necessarily mean that what you have to use, but what you want to do is make sure that they're all overarching with the same concept of who you are and who you want to brand as. Because then what you do is you expand that into your Instagram, Twitter, YouTube channel, practice name, have it intertwined in the practice name, the various social medias, a Facebook page, etc., etc. And this is just kind of gets you started to the next. So when anyone ever wants to look you up, they kind of have a whole brand of who you are as an individual everywhere. Now, this is information that I got secondhand from Christy Owenby, who is the founder and owner of the MOXY, which is a social media consulting group. And I listen to her content. She's a good friend of mine. We consult all the time about topics. And she gives me a lot of great advice. And whenever she is on a podcast or whenever she's being interviewed, I really perk up my ears and try to listen to her. So that's someone I recommend you follow or potentially even work with if that's someone that you align your values with. But she kind of talks about this. It's like, if I have a procedure that pays pretty well and I want to go market that on my social media, I don't think this is something doctors think about at all. So you might be sitting there like, what does this even mean? So I'll give you an example. So say I do a cash-based procedure, or it doesn't have to be cash-based. Let's talk about something that's covered by insurance, like a kyphoplasty procedure where we go in and we cause cavitation and collapse vertebral body from a stress fracture, and we go and fill it in with what we call cement. So this is a pretty good procedure. It's a great procedure for pain, and the reimbursement's good, as a very good reimbursement, especially if it's done in office. So, what I could do is take that procedure, and I can have my patient sign a disclosure saying, hey, we're not going to use your face or your name, but can we use images from this procedure to spread education? And most patients are acceptable to that. And again, you want to be HIPAA compliant. You don't want to give any dates or names or any identifying factors of the patient. Really what you want to do is focus on yourself and maybe just what you doing the procedure and what the end product is of the procedure, like the images on the fluoroscopy machine. So what we do with this, like, okay, great. We have a great picture and we want to put it on social media. Some people are like, oh, great, I'll just go throw it on social media and that's all I have to do. Well, with what advertisement is now, we know that there's so much more that we can start doing with these things. So what you do is you can go to social media, you can go to Instagram, you can go to Facebook, post this, and then what you can do is boost the ad. And when you boost the ad, you give a monetary value of how much money you want to spend in, say, a week or a month or however many days. So say in the span of a week, you want to spend $50. So what it will do, it'll span out the money every day, and it'll allocate a certain amount of money every day. And what that does is it'll pop up on individuals' feeds when they're flipping through Instagram or flipping through Facebook. I think there's a YouTube variety of this as well. I'm not as informed about the YouTube variety, but I'm sure the concept is very similar. And what this does is it gets more eyes on your page. It might even generate a patient lead. It might even generate a patient that needs a kyphoplasty. So now you give a small nominal amount of money to potentially get a bigger reimbursement, right? So, I'll give you a prime example for myself. I boosted an ad this past week of a spinal cord stimulator trial that I had done in my office. I didn't even have the patient. I just had the rep, Leslie Crone, with me, who works with Boston Scientific. And we just kind of discussed the educational portion about that in my description of it. And I boosted on Facebook, I boosted on LinkedIn, and on Instagram. So it increased the views of my website by, somewhere from 300 to 400% for that time frame. It generated a couple leads of patients that want to be seen in my office. So that's great. So not only am I getting more eyes on my website, which is improving the search engine optimization of my website, but it's also getting more patients to call in and maybe see me, and more patients I can potentially help out. So that's something, I never learned that in med school. I never learned that in residency or fellowship. I would be surprised if any of these practices that have been around for a long time even know how to do that kind of stuff. So that's one small thing you could do with social media, the power of social media. But again, you want to make sure your websites are compliant and your pictures are compliant. You might need a legal consult on this. I think a lot of these social media social media companies even the influencers, they probably do know what's legal and what you can put up and what you can't put up. So that's just one small example of something I want to talk about, which is great. And when you start thinking about things in this term, then you can start generating more patients, you can start generating more conversations, and that will, in the long run, allow you to help our patients. So now you're not just relying on every referral from an outside source, you're going direct to the patients who are looking for this kind of help anyway. So when you're getting direct in front of the patient, that's a win-win. you're really able to expand your scope and help more people. So that kind of brings up my point. It's like, okay, so everyone's like, oh, well, I talked about search engine optimization. Why don't I just go build my website? And that's fine. I tried to build my own website. It was very time consuming. It wasn't costly, but it took a lot of time for me to do it. And honestly, it was kind of frustrating because it wasn't going exactly how I wanted it to do. So with that being said, I used a company like Fiverr, which there's a independent contractors that you can hire. A lot of them from India or the Middle East or Canada. There's some in the United States for various prices, and you set a budget and you kind of go with that. So that was great, but the problem is that doesn't feed into your search engine optimization. So just because you have a website, great, but when people are searching for you, the SEOs, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to come up. So my page was actually, if you Google search Nick Overma MD, Columbus, Ohio, it wouldn't even come up on the first page. It would come up on the third page or something weird like that. And then like all the procedures I offer, like epidural steroid injections or shoulder injections or transforaminals, spinal cord stimulators, whatever. None of this would search engine was like Columbus, Ohio, interventional pain, Columbus, Ohio, epidural. I wouldn't even be on this front 7 pages. So you got to start thinking about these things. Like, man, I built this website, I spent all this time, and it's not even working. So there are companies out there that you can use that can help you build your website, but also help make sure that your search engine optimization is optimized. The company that I use right now is Patient Pop. There's other ones out there. Valet Health's another one. There are tons of other ones out there. You want to find the ones that fit your needs and for your budget and what you think is going to be beneficial. So that's another thing about search engine optimization. So there might be people out there that's like, oh, don't worry, I'll find all the hits, I'll find the clicks. Well, not necessarily, because Google will actually go and scrub your name and your specialty and all this stuff, and it'll pop up as like, if you're not a website that's getting a lot of traffic organically and from other websites, then it won't necessarily put you in the front search engine optimization. So that's another thing that people don't realize. They're like, oh, it's fine, I'll just pay the money. It's not just about the money. It's actually about organic optimization of that website. So other ways you can improve this is you can start writing blogs. I write a blog on my website once a month about frequently asked questions. Very simple things that my patients are already asking me, and I put it up there, or things that I believe in, such as physical therapy or a procedure that's kind of new that I want to talk about. So starting a blog will help organic search engine optimization. Putting up videos, that's another great way. So now patients are getting up on the website because they see videos on there. Another way is, when you start cross-linking different platforms to your website. So my YouTube channel, you'll see that I have my website in that comment section. You'll see on my Instagram, my Facebook, it's all kind of links back to my website. So if more patients want to if anyone wants to know more about me, or there's a referring physician out there who's like, oh, I know this doctor in Columbus, Ohio, that might live on the other side of the United States. They're like, oh, I've seen his channel, so let me send him something. I can send him a patient, or they can find my info on my website. So again, I don't expect people to be as aggressive as I am with it. I think there are different levels of comfort with this, but it's something to start thinking about, especially if you want to start leveraging yourself in whatever area you're at. So that's kind of how search engine optimization works to your favor. There's also another thing about, like I said, the organic hits. You don't want people just searching for your name. You want them to come across your ad on the website. So here's another thing. Google will ask you to set up a Google business profile. When you set up that Google business profile, then Google will come in and assure that it's you actually running that company. It's not a shell company. And they'll base a lot on Google reviews. And this is why reviews become very important. So this kind of comes back to a company that I work with, Valet Health, who kind of manages some of my reviews and makes sure that my patients get review. Hey, you saw Dr. Berm this week. Could you please leave a review? And that's a way that I can generate more reviews, and that increases my search engine optimization, and that helps me get more reviews, helps give me credibility, more patients in the door. So that's just something to think about. In these, like I said, these organic hits. So this might come from not just people directly searching your name, but saying Columbus, Ohio, interventional pain doctor. And then my name might not be the first or second, but when someone clicks down it later, that would be an organic hit because they weren't looking directly for me. So that's something else to think about. Google will also do true scrubs of your website, and they'll check everything to make sure it's compliant. Google has its own set of rules, so you can't say that I do stem cell therapy anywhere on your website because there's no such thing as stem cell therapy, and it's not FDA approved. You'll get a red flag, and your page will be put on hold or taken down. So there's a lot of compliance, a lot of things to think about. So if you do have something that's borderline, like, hey, I don't know if this is right or should put on, the recommendation that I have is go to a university that's in your area. Ohio State University. I'll go to their website and see what they have posted because they have teams of lawyers and compliant agents that will make sure that they are compliant. So if it's good enough for Ohio State, it's probably good enough for you. And these big universities are trying to avoid these massive lawsuits. So something else to keep in mind about making sure that your website's compliant and that you're compliant and you're not doing something that break the law. So we talked about ads, we talked about Google search ads, we talked about Instagram and Facebook ads, YouTube ads. So those are good ways to get your name out there, get people that might not know who you are or where you're at into your realm so they can start following you at least, or pique an interest like, yeah, maybe this doctor does a certain procedure that hasn't been offered to me. And that's, a great way to pull in leads. I'll give you a fantastic example about this past week. Kiran Patel, who's a physician in New York, she had just done the relieve and intercept procedure for Carson Daly. And, this was a great way for her to boost not only that procedure, but what she can offer for patients in that area. And the thing is, this is kind of groundbreaking. In the past 5-10 years, like this procedure wasn't there. And now it is, and it's starting to become more popular. So I think she really, cracked that ceiling and like, hey, look, this procedure's out there. We can offer it for patients. Now, I guarantee she's going to have tons of people lining up outside of her door to get seen. But now think about all those other physicians in the area that offer that same procedure. They can also leverage that into their own algorithm to try to help their patients. Now, stealing things from other people because of it was her procedure and what she did might be a little shady, so I wouldn't recommend that. But the concept remains is that, hey, this procedure was done for a famous celebrity. It's something that I can offer for you as well. If this is the right patient for the right procedure, let's set up a time and talk and see if this is in fact where we land with that. So, you should probably follow her anyway. She crushes on social media. She's a great advocate for the field of pain medicine, and she does a lot for the advancement of women in interventional pain. And she's speaks at a whole bunch of conferences. But she's a great example of someone to follow and kind of get some tips and tricks of how to manage and run your social media. Again, you don't have to be as aggressive as she is. There's other people out there that are very specific and very focused and do it at a much lower scale and are still very successful. In fact, the reality of it all is the more specific you can be to a specific patient population, the better your results will be with these targeted ads. So for example, if you're a orthopedic surgeon and you're the best orthopedic surgeon in the area for knee surgeries and you have this new technique, whatever, you would and it's, not for knee replacements, but for like say ACL repair or something. So what you would advertise for yourself is like, people that are 18 to 55 that are still active that have a torn ACL. So you're really narrowing it down to a very specific patient population that would probably come to you more likely. So just say you do that search ad. That same $30 would go specifically to these types of people. So they would come and call that orthopedic surgeon and be like, hey, I need to be seen by you because I saw your ads. So that's something to think about. The more specific you can be, the better it is for you. So I'm looking at my notes real fast. What else we have? So, there's other things, pay to click. That's a similar concept of paid ads, of how you put yourself out there and then you're kind of paying per click of how many patients will click on that ad to try to get into their search, improve your search engine optimization. Business profiles. So we have like WebMD, we have all these other health grades, Doximity, all these ones. I can't even name them all because there's so many out there. What they do is they kind of scrub your background and they put you up on their website without you knowing. So you personally have to go manage every single one of these, and people don't realize that. So go, if you're a physician, go search your name and just look. Search your name and your location. Just look at how many of these web profiles, and then click on some of the ones that are low down the list. I guarantee that information is wrong. I had one that was still my information from residency. It's 6-7 years, like 5-6 years ago, whatever, however long ago that was. That's like, ridiculous to think about. Even though I keep everything up to date on my CAQH or CAHQ and my Medicare profiles and my and every other profile, on my website, everything doesn't matter. Yeah, they will mess it up. So I mentioned Valet Health earlier, and this is another shout out to them because they actually do go in the background and they will go own all these platforms and correct them for you, which is great because I think it's worth it. But also, on these specific websites, such as WebMD, you can be an advertised physician on that, and you'll be cycled through all the other advertised physicians in that area. So, for example, interventional pain in Columbus, Ohio, there's several doctors, and I wasn't popping up on the top of that WebMD profile because the ones that were paying were getting on top of the profile. I didn't have a picture up, the information was wrong, all this stuff. So I kind of handed the reins over to them. I was like, fix this for me, and then let's talk after a while and see if it's working, and it'll continue to work. So these are the kind of things that you don't think about, but this is how you build yourself up and build online presence and build your profile. The other thing is, building your own personal brand. I think I started off this talk explaining how I was at the Toby conference and individuals coming up to me that I had never met before. We might have interacted on internet, but it was, it was kind of cool. It's like, hey, I built a personal brand about things I didn't learn in med school, and being passionate about talking about these topics and things that I feel like could help you and continue to give you guys value. It's something that's important, and I think it's something that we should continue to look into. But looking into building your own personal brand. And this, again, you don't have to start a YouTube channel. You don't have to start a podcast. You don't have to do any of this. The whole idea is who do you want to be as a physician? Who do you want to be as a healthcare worker? Who do you want to be as an individual in the world? And go do that and build your personal brand around that. I have a buddy who's neuropsychopharmacologist, Jesse Luke, and he has built his whole surrounding about talking about medications in the neuropsych realm, which is fantastic. And I said you don't have to start a YouTube channel or anything, but he did start one, and it is pretty cool. So I recommend you go checking that out. But yeah, that's just a brand that he's developed. But there's tons of other ways to do it. If you're healthcare advocacy, that's great. Just carry that on and make sure that that's what you're talking about. A big thing is when you're developing this personal brand, more patients will see who you are. When they search for you, you'll come up on the search engine optimization. When they look for you on social media, you'll be easier to find. And then they get a more comfort level. A patient will hear my voice. A patient will see what I look like. They'll see how I talk. They'll see my mannerisms. They'll be much more comfortable to come to my door when we set up an appointment than if they just saw my name. And I don't say this to be mean or racist or whatever, but it's like, if you see a name that's foreign to you and it doesn't make sense, then that can be perceived as a negative way. And I have thought about that very heavily because I will sometimes pick up the phone and then say, "This is Dr. Verma," and the patient's like, "Oh, great, you speak English." And it doesn't make me feel good to say that, but this is the reality of the world that we live in. Hopefully, we can continue to move to a place that we don't have to think about these kind of things, and that's not what people will have to say, but it is what it is right now. I'm not going to take my energy to try to fix someone or correct someone, but it's something to be said that, I would want my patients to be comfortable. I want them to have a good experience when they come into my office. I want them to have a good experience when through the entire interaction. And that includes the second that they look at my website. If you have a website that's all over the place, I treat this, I do this, the patients are going to get confused. They're like, maybe I don't want to go to this person. The more simple you can make your website, the better. Make sure your mission statement is clear on your website. Make sure that it's easy to find what your numbers are, what your fax numbers are, the address. These are all things that we don't think about, but these companies that do build profiles, they do think about these things. So, I'm not saying go spend all your money on these, or you have to partner with any of these, the Valet Health, the Patient Pops, the Birdeye, who's one that'll help clean up your profiles across boards. But these are things that you should think about. If you don't have the time and energy to do it, then that's the time you start partnering with these companies. You don't necessarily have to have a social media content creator or someone that manages your social media stuff. If you have the time to do it, for example, right now, I had the time to do it and I enjoy doing it, so that's why I do it. Am I doing it the best way? No, absolutely not. But what I am doing is able to catch KPIs, key performance indicators. So I can see how much of money I allocate to a certain ad and what kind of hits it gets and what kind of ROI and patient returns and in the doors they come. Not that I think of a patient as like a return investment or return of value, but it's like if I truly, honestly want to go help people out and they don't know about the procedures and what all I can offer and how quickly I can get them in and all these things, then I'm doing a disservice to the patients out there. And there are physicians, there are people out there that do think of every patient as just a money in the bank, money in the bank, money in the bank. And I try not to think of that, but if you can start seeing what you're doing as being beneficial and as helpful to people out there that might not have access to this kind of care or procedure that they might not have available to them otherwise. So that's a win in my book. And if I can continue focused on that, then I think I'm going to continue to build something that's going to be beneficial for more people out there. Well, that's pretty much everything I had to say about that topic. I hope you found this one useful. If you did, please like it, please share, please ask me some questions. I think that's the biggest thing. Share this with your friends. I don't think that enough people are realizing how important social media and owning your online presence and what that actually means. There's a great podcast on the Ortho Show with Scott Sigman and Christy Owenby from MOXY. They talk about owning your online presence. And I think it's a great episode. I highly recommend you guys all going back and looking that up. Again, it's the Ortho Show. It was probably aired sometime in April or May of 2022. So, it was a great episode. So, please go share this. Please listen to that episode. If you have questions, please message me. Again, if you do find this useful, please give me a like, drop some comments. But also, I said this last time, more and more students and residents are asking to come rotate with me or call me up, and I'm happy to give advice while I still have the time. So if you want to get to know me better or kind of know how I run my practice and where I'm taking everything, I'm happy to get on the phone with you and talk with you for a little bit. And have a bunch of topics lined up for the next several weeks, so we'll just keep tackling away at them. And I know I keep promising I'll start having some guests on soon, but I'm not sure exactly when that'll be, but I will try to figure it out for you guys and get on some great guests so we can start talking about some other topics that are not just listening to me on this YouTube channel. So everyone have a good night, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.